Hi everyone! It is only Nadia today, unfortunately. I know I missed Jake too. Today I'm going to be reviewing Solo, the Amateur. Jake didn't finish the film. He fell asleep watching the film. He basically thought it was not good and he hated it. Didn't really have anything to say except that he hated it, and also he fell asleep. He's taking care of a little boy right now and playing with him. Wow, I've never done a video solo in this channel or ever in my life. So I liked it. I think that Jake would rate it like 1 out of 10. I rate it like 8 out of 10. And I really wish that he finished it just so that I could like see why he hated it so much and saw the ending and see if he like actually felt the same way. I don't have too much to say in the non-spoiler. I really like films like this. It's John Wick type. Maybe just getting out and watching something that I didn't really have to think about, that was just fun, added to my rating. What I liked about the film, it kept the action going. The beginning of the film was a little slow. What is this going to be? But I actually didn't watch the trailer or anything. I tend not to do that because a lot of trailers have spoilers in them. When I went to the film, Jake was asking me, do you know anything about the film? And I said no. And he was like, okay, that's great. Like, don't watch or see anything. I think that'll be more fun. And so that's what I did. It's a typical John Wick type. Guy is avenging his wife who was murdered by bad people, but just flip that around with John Wick being a very nerdy guy. And that might sound bad, but it wasn't for me. Just because there are a lot of action and moving sequences that made it interesting. There were a lot of like, I guess, sort of chapters in the film where, you know, okay, what is this guy going to do? So Heller, who's the main character, just goes through different phases of strategy that he has to avenge his wife because people he thought would avenge her are not avenging her. They're basically corrupt. I liked it because it kept going, kept me engaged. I actually had to pee like 15 minutes into the film and I didn't because I was afraid that I was going to miss something. Maybe it was because I didn't want to miss something for you guys, but I really was engaged in willing to let my bladder explode, and I think that earned some points. And also it met my expectations. Like, what do I expect with these kind of films? I expect action, I expect, you know, conflict, I expect it to be a little smart, but also to be witty. Witty it was not. Smart it was. Felt entertained. So it's like, this is what I signed up for, this is what I got. I wasn't expecting something where it was going to be a genius plot, and a lot of that could be factored in with the fact that I didn't watch the trailer and I had no expectations to begin with, so maybe that added to a higher rating. But at the end of the day, I left the film really glad that I'd seen it and enjoyed it, and, you know, really wanting to talk about it. So I would say that it did its job. So to make myself feel better, what would Jake say? The movie sucked. What is life? Go watch it if you want to watch a movie like this, but if you don't, I don't know, guys. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm tired. Yeah, I think that's what he would say. I'm tired too, but I liked it. And I also liked it because, you know, I'm a wife and I would like, you know, my husband to kick some ass if something happened to me that was not good, like such as murder. I'm going to move on to a spoiler section very soon because there are things that I didn't like about the film and I wanted to highlight that, but there's no way to highlight that without actually getting into spoilers. So 3, 2, 1, spoilers. One of the things that I found that was strange is that Heller is not a killer, at least directly. He's an indirect killer. So basically, he kills all these people, part of the group of gang of people who helped the felicitation of murdering his wife. But he's not a killer because he can't shoot someone. I guess, like, when I was in college, they used to say, they used to give a scenario in a psychology class that I took where if you had to push someone off the building, would you do it? And a lot of people would answer no. Someone else would, if you had to kill that person, but you didn't have to push them off the building, but you could make, let's say, an accident happen that would kill them, but you wouldn't be, you know, pushing them off, would you do it? Most people said yes. So I think it's kind of like that scenario, something that maybe being close to the victims, quote unquote, or in these case, murderers, made it where Heller felt like it was way too intimate, which it is intimate. But what I did like about the film is that as the movie progressed, he was able to become more and more like an intimate killer. But then at the end, he decides not to kill the very person who killed his wife because he discovers his moral conscience or something, and then he has him arrested instead. And it's like, how do we go from all of this revenge driven to not wanting to kill the actual person who shot down your wife? That's okay. I also, didn't understand why. I mean, I'm glad that they didn't show like his wife being murdered, but it kind of made me feel like falsely that his wife was actually alive, a two-faced spy, or I guess a spy is two-faced by the name, but I thought it was going to be something like that. So it turns out his wife is actually dead. So yeah, that happened. Very stereotypical. I also didn't care about him not having a humor. So in the beginning of the film, and this is kind of what added to my theory that the wife is actually alive but a spy, wife calls him in the very beginning and it's like, it says a joke, I forget what it was, and he takes it seriously, and I'm like, do you know your wife? Or do you know your wife at all? It kind of felt like unnatural for something so obvious for like a husband not to get. But then throughout the film, he doesn't have a sense of humor, which is part of his quirk, which is fine, but it just felt weird that he doesn't understand his wife's sense of humor that was so obvious to even strangers. That's his character. He's a humorless genius, wants to be John Wick, but isn't John Wick. Not a killer because he's not an intimate killer. So that makes him better than others who are intimate killers. I like that Heller gets more and more like desensitized to killing, and he kind of goes through multiple trauma, right, with his wife dying, and then he goes through trauma of like just going on a run, hoping that this scheme works, getting semi-trained, which he was in this training camp for, it felt like a day. It's like, how are you gonna learn what you need to learn in such a short time? But okay, so he goes through that trauma of like seeing if they're going to call out his bluff because he tells Director Moore in record outside of the CIA and he'll expose him and blah 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 blah, and then goes through the trauma of like just hunting down leads who could lead him to the killer. So throughout the time he gets more and more desensitized, he becomes more and more spy. But then again, he doesn't at the very end kill. I mean, this is what I'm thinking is like I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong if you watch the film, but the bear, who's the guy that he apparently saved in the beginning of the film, there's a hint that that guy is going to be around in the film a lot more. And then at the end, he just gives like a moral speech, but then I swear in the beginning I heard them describe him as like a brutal, basically a badass. But apparently he's also an indirect killer because he says he leads people do things that leads them to an accident that gets them killed, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. Has a talk with Heller and says, you're better than this, and as if he knows Heller. And then Heller is like, aren't you also a killer? It's like, not really. I make things happen that gets people killed. They stop this, talk. It leads nowhere. There's like a surprise that he's actually not going to kill the guy who, again, directly murdered his wife because he's not a killer. I know I keep saying that because it's like, what the heck? Okay. The guy who was his trainee who was hunting him throughout the film surprises him because we think he's dead, but he's actually not. Then says, thank you, guy, for doing the job, the right thing. And it's like, dude, why didn't you do the right thing? You could have let him go, but you were so... I guess it's like, I can't do the right thing, but you can. So I'm going to make it difficult throughout the film for you to do the right thing, just to thank you at the end. Director O'Brien's role felt a little convenient to me because I guess they wanted someone who was Director Moore's opposite and equally as important position as Moore, who was going to be able to help Heller expose Moore. And it felt like, okay, she's in a power play, she's the moral morally righteous superior in the CIA, and therefore she would be the one to have Heller save his reputation and then restore his good graces amongst his fellow CIA agents and the public. However, like I said, it felt convenient. I always imagined it would be more like, you know, he would kill the guy who killed his wife. He would find a way to expose more anyway, because he was able to hack CIA, I'm pretty sure, at one point, to distort people's faces to make other people look like Heller, so that the CIA agents wouldn't be able to tell exactly where his location was through facial recognition. So it felt much in his ballpark to hack the CIA to get the file. So anyway, that's what I thought about the film. I didn't care to really go into the minor details, even though there are some minor details that I liked, I didn't like. I think I kind of covered the highlight of things. I still recommend it, even though listening to me kind of talking about the cons, I would bring my rating down to a 7. But yeah, I still had fun. Like, I watched this film and I was really happy that I watched it. Let me know what you think if you've seen it. But thanks for putting up with me this time alone. Bye, I'll see you next time.